Good evening, Vicksburg, to tonight's Village Council regular session, April 18, 2022. We'll call this meeting to order. Apologize for the delay. We're going to have a long night tonight, and it started off with a bang. So we'll do a call to order and a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll take a moment of silence to acknowledge all those around the world tonight that are hurting. And Mr. Mallory, if you do roll call, please.
Roll call for Village Council meeting of April 18th, 2022. Trustee Merrill?
Here.
Trustee Holmes?
Here.
Trustee Keller?
Here.
Trustee Reister?
Here.
Trustee Wagner?
Here.
Trustee Olson?
Here.
President Frisbee?
Here. Hopefully that's not God reaching out to me.
The record will reflect Mr. Olson's microphone is here as well.
Well, we have an agenda in front of us tonight. Mr. Mallory, are there any additions or changes?
Not to the agenda, no, sir.
Any changes by the council? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
I'll support.
Motion moved by trustee Keller, supported by trustee Wagner. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have an agenda. And on tonight's scheduled appearances, I believe we'll start out with Mr. Drew Johnson of South County Community Services.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm just here to kind of talk about what we did in 2021 and what we did in 2022. We kind of like to go to all the different municipalities because you guys are kind of the leaders of the community that a lot of people come to when they need help. And you can kind of help us get the word out to people that might not know about us, which is a big part of what we have been trying to do in 2021 and what we plan to do in 2022. So kind of all the big top line stuff is that it kind of, assistance looked similar in 2021. It was maybe a little bit more. There was a little bit more people in need in 2021 because there was a lot less assistance available from other places. But from our perspective, other than that, it looked pretty similar. We kept similar programs. We added some new senior programming this year in the form of some senior food deliveries that we paid for with the grant from, I believe, the Vicksburg Foundation. And we started Safe at Home. We restarted Safe at Home program and helped 10 local seniors with that. So just kind of in general, we're kind of pushing towards seniors and pushing towards outreach, kind of trying to get out there people that don't know about us. So in addition to that, we also once again did the holidays. We picked up a little bit of slack for available assistance with the holidays and distributed over $30,000 worth of assistance for people in need with food and gifting. And then we also did approximately $60,000 worth of basic needs assistance. So we're a basic needs agency. We focus on helping people with housing, and utilities is a big part of that. Also food, transportation, and medication. And so we distributed approximately $60,000 worth of assistance in those areas. And we also help people sign up for about $26,000 worth of assistance from the state. So that would be generally for utilities, for like a utility disconnection. But we'll also help out with getting people signed up for food stamps and Medicaid and that kind of thing, because it's pretty complicated to do that a lot. In 2022, we have a federal grant that we're working with United Way on in order to really kind of beef up some more utility and rent assistance. It's part of the American Rescue Plan Act funding. So we're going to be distributing that in our community. We're also really, again, trying to kind of push and get out to all kinds of different population centers that we can all throughout South County, because it's a really big service area, and we're really trying to just make sure that everybody knows about us. So in the next month, we're going to have some church leaders to our building, make sure that everybody there kind of gets a tour of what it looks like so that they can let people know about it, let people know about our services if they're in need. We're doing some more e-newsletters and mailings so that we make sure that people know kind of about what's going on at South County, and we're hoping to kind of continue those in 2022. I was hoping that Sarah was going to be here to talk about senior outreach with you, but
Drew?
she wasn't able to make it tonight.
Is that Sarah Cagney?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
she's here. I didn't know she was joining us. I can promote her
yes.
to panelist. So, Sarah, I'll be promoting you to panelist. And then if you can, yep. Well,
Oh, good. That's good.
Hi there.
Hi
there.
Me.
Thank you for letting me come in and talk. I just want to talk a little bit about the senior programs that we've been doing, again, 2021, 22. Drew mentioned the Safe at Home. We do have that program that's to help the older adults within the service area to just we can do a safety assessment. That's the ultimate goal, is to make sure individuals are safe in their own home, and then provide the equipment and
Recording in progress.
or the instructions to make sure, we can get that done. So grab bars, raised toilet seats, some ramps if needed. And if we can't get the ramp done, we'll work with other providers in the area to do so. We also have a Kinship Program, which a lot of people have been involved in, and that's for older adults raising grandchildren or relative children in their own homes. So we provide emotional support and activities to, have social outings, interactions with people with similar situations. Last year alone, just some numbers really quick, we served 238 unique individuals, meaning new individuals, and that was actually up 70% from 2020. So quite a bit of increase, and we hope to, reach more individuals and be able to help and go from there. And one of the big things that I like to mention is that there's no income eligibility for the help for the senior outreach. So really, if anybody has any questions about the Aging Network, that certainly give us a call. If they need resources or referrals or whatnot, we're happy to help.
Yep, absolutely. And really, we're kind of trying to connect people to all kinds of things. So, if somebody's just kind of got some challenges, you can feel free to send them our way, and we'll just kind of try to help work through things with them, even if that's not something that we can solve directly. We work pretty closely with other service providers like the Community Mental Health in Kalamazoo and Milestone Senior Services and other places like that. So we'll get where they need to go.
One additional thing that I did forget to mention, of course, in addition to our pantry, a lot of the older adults aren't able, or especially during COVID, we recognized weren't able to get out of their house or wanting to leave their house feeling comfortable. So for seniors in the area, we can work with volunteers and or myself as senior outreach coordinator to deliver the pantry items to those individuals that can't leave the home.
Thank you very much for all you're doing. Anyone have any questions of South County while we have them on? Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Sarah, for attending and speaking to that. And I encourage anyone out there, any seniors that need some assistance, need some direction, they're there for you. If you're a caregiver, don't hesitate to reach out to this group, South County Community Services. They'll get you in good hands and help out where they can. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Jim.
thank you for having us.
Drew and Sarah, but Drew, and so the council knows we'll be talking about it later during management time. I'd like to publicly thank you last week for helping me out, and your organization for putting a letter of support into a grant opportunity. So Drew was excellent to work with. I called him in the bottom of the 9th inning, and he paused everything to help us out there. So thank you.
Absolutely, not a problem. And it seems like an awesome program. I'm really excited to for you guys to be doing that, and hopefully we can help you out with it. So,
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
you guys.
All right, and we know that you guys can go ahead and log off unless you want to. It's a pretty lengthy agenda, but your choice.
Aye.
We're not offended.
Well, we have public official time tonight. Mr. John Giesler is with us.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
That's about as long as I can sit anymore. First, I apologize. Would you mind? Oh. Thank you.
The podium.
Get to be mic'd.
You just witnessed us working so hard to get this.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, I made the comment over there when you guys were first getting geared up. I wish the county had this sound system. We've got a new one, and we cannot have more than 2 mics active at one time. So if you're going around for a roll call vote and it comes to you and you push the button, the light turns red and you say yes or no, and you forget to turn it off, 2 more down the line and feedback and all sorts of bad things happen. I don't even know what we paid for that, but it's still got a little ways to go. I'm John Gisler. I'm the South County County Commissioner, and I apologize for missing some of your meetings. I was explaining to a few people, because of the new configuration of the county districts, I will give up next year, assuming I'm reelected. I'll give up Schoolcraft Township and Prairie Ron Township. Those are, very near and dear to me, but I pick up Waukesha, Climax, and Comstock. And Comstock is the big nut. 7 precincts, and everything else is 7 precincts. So I have to start paying some attention there, and unfortunately they meet on the nights you guys meet, but they meet at 6 o'clock. So I went there and begged off at a half hour to go, and I said, I'm sorry, I got to get to Vicksburg. I'm going to get thrown out next time I go to Rise and Dine. Anyway, I've got 3 things to share with you tonight. One has to do with the new county building, the big $94 million thing going up just west of the current county building. They're putting structural steel on the 5th floor, which is good. It's going to be a 6-story building when it's finished. And we have to occupy it by a year from next month. And they say that's on schedule, and it is on budget. So I've got my fingers crossed, because when you have that big a deal going, to keep it on budget and on schedule is commendable. We've got 2 new people at the county. We have Alvin Gray, who is in a new position that was just created, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. He started about a month ago, and he's still feeling his way around, and as you would do in a new job, he came down from Grand Rapids, where he's got some DEI experience. He'll be finding the men's room for a while, and not doing too much beyond that. And we will have on May 2nd, a new administrator, not an interim administrator. We'll have a chap coming in from Boone County, Illinois, which is out near Rockford. And he's a young, sharp fellow named Kevin Catlin. And we have big hopes that this is going to be a real good fix for not having Tracy Moret around anymore, because she was good. So that's it from the county level, with 2 new hires. One's already here and a new one coming in. They're important positions, and the building is going along fairly well. I will tell you this, somebody gets a big kudo, and I don't know who it is. Well, it might be Jerry Vanderveen is our owner's rep, and there is somebody on the counter side of that, the project manager for CMS Construction. They squirreled away the steel 2 years ago. As soon as this was a viable project, they bought the steel because they could see the supply chain just sucking up, and they did really well for us. I don't know where they put it, whether they buried it in a cave or whatever, but they're bringing it out now as it's needed, and we've got 5 out of the 6 stories done. So well done, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
The supply chain is a definite big issue. And I said the supply chain is a definite big issue. And it was very forward thinking for them to acquire that steel ahead of time.
There's no substitute
Absolutely. And it pays to have a project administrator with that type of experience. Thank you, John. We've come to time for agenda items only and citizens' comments. If there's anybody who would like to speak to the agenda, tonight is the time to do it. We will have time later on to speak to non-agenda items later on in the meeting.
Okay, we'll try. We do have a couple people that have remoted in, and we had directions. If you do wish to speak on an agenda item, I believe everyone's logged on a computer, so you'd wave your cursor down below and hit the raise hand, and if I see your hand raised, we'll go ahead and on agenda items. I do not see anyone electronically.
All right, sir.
But then we'll come into the room if anyone wants to speak on agenda items.
Excuse me. We'll move to the approval for the general consent agenda. We have minutes of regular scheduled council meeting of March 21, warrant reports, event request, pavilion in the village market, and the correspondence and FOIA communications. Was there any changes, or anybody catch any corrections in the minutes? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve and to...
Trustee Wagner, I move to approve the general consent agenda as submit.
And Merrill supporting.
Trustee Wagner motions and Trustee Merrill in support. We'll do a roll call, please, Jim.
Roll call. Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Merrill.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion carries. It moves us on to village council action items, and we have several in front of us tonight. We started out with EMO PA 198. Mr. Balkema is attending via Zoom meeting tonight. There is Jared. Good evening.
Yes, and with that, we'll have, I turn it over to Jared, but within the packet, you do have a copy of the resolution. We also have Mr. Gary Hollum in representing EMO, and you all are very aware of Jared Belka, for those who aren't, is a principal partner of Warner Norcross and helps us on economic incentive opportunities to continue to have the village grow in the areas of industry and business and provide jobs, which hopefully goes to the vitality. So, Jared, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what's in front of the council on the PA 198.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate allowing me to join you this evening. I'll give kind of a brief overview of the application. I think, Jim, I'm not sure how much was shared on the scope of the project. I think it might be helpful. You said you had a company representative there, correct?
Correct. In this issue, we can have speak on, but it came in front of the council before, with, as well as the Planning Commission, with the job opportunities over the next 3 to 5 years and the investment the company is making. But if the council desires, I'm sure we can provide that again.
Okay.
But that's what it's in relation to.
Perfect. All right. So obviously this is not new to everybody then. So, but I appreciate that clarification, Jamie. But yeah, the application is the PA 198, the Industrial Facilities Tax Abatement. These are pretty common amongst the manufacturing industries to help support that growth. This would be for a new facilities certificate. This application, it essentially is a 50% tax abatement for the new investment, which in this case is estimated about $4.1 million in the real property. The total investment with machinery and equipment is about $10 million, but the IFT would only apply to the real property improvements.
The applicant has requested a 12-year abatement on that. And obviously you guys are, it sounds like you're familiar with the projected job growth, but the request before you is to support a property tax abatement that obviously helps offset some of the operating costs and allows the business to continue to grow within the community. Happy to answer any questions on that, but the request is pretty straightforward. It is only applicable to the new investment at the facility, which I believe is about a 30,000 square foot addition for the property. So again, happy to answer any questions with the request before you. But I've reviewed all the application materials. Everything appears in line, and happy to answer any questions.
And so the council knows after Jared did review it, staff is recommending that this resolution is supported, and we certainly appreciate this company and their investment, historical investment, and continued investment in our community and on into the future. Yeah, Trustee
Yes,
Holmes has a question.
Hi, Jared. Would appreciate it if you could, I'm going to step back from this microphone because it's dangerous right now. Would appreciate if you could expand a little bit upon the use of tax abatements as an economic development tool in a broad sense beyond this, just to give perspective to those that are here tonight. I mean, we all hear about it, but it'd be someone that specializes in this. I would really appreciate if you could just kind of go a little bit higher and broader just to kind of explain what we're really talking about here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, the tax abatement, obviously we're in an environment where we continue to see increased costs. Just touching on the steel discussion just prior to is a good example. You know, there are the construction costs continue to escalate, and you know, it makes it harder and harder to make investments like this, which, you know, companies need to continue to grow and create jobs and make further investment in the community. So when you have a company come to you, you know, the Village of Vicksburg, I know we've talked about the different kinds of tools that are available, but you know, you're somewhat limited in the toolbox that you have to support some of these projects. So, you know, one, you've got to take kind of a creative approach, but two, you know, you've got to look at the available tools to assist companies to offset some of these increased costs, which allows them to, you know, justify the investment in the community. So, you know, oftentimes, you know, the PA 198, which is the request before you, is very commonplace in the manufacturing sector. You know, it's a key incentive that allows companies to, you know, to justify this investment. But they are very commonplace within the manufacturing. You see a lot of, you know, announcements for, you know, new companies or new expansions within the state that are tied with business development dollars. You know, that's the state using, you know, the business development program to, you know, try and lure new businesses to the state, but you know, they don't use that same tool to try and, you know, retain or grow companies, and that's where, you know, you, the locals, can step up and show your support through the use of these kinds of tools. So, you know, it's commonplace request, but it is one that, you know, it is discretionary. You know, the village doesn't have to approve it, but, you know, obviously to foster that growth in the community, you know, this is an available tool that the company has requested that you can use to help show your support for, you know, for their investment in the community and obviously job growth, you know, and really to support that long-term growth. Is that helpful?
It's very helpful. I think so many times we hear something that we take it for granted, maybe what it is and what we believe it to be and actually what it is. And so that's really what I was hoping to hear, is you to explain a little bit like you did, so that not only the council can hear from someone that specializes in this, but also those that might be listening as well as in the audience tonight. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess to add to that, you know, to your point, yes, you hear, it's easy to say, well, somebody's coming to look for a handout. And I think, when you're really eyes and ears on the ground, seeing what a lot of these companies and developers and such have to go through to try and make projects make fiscal sense, all of this is kind of, this is an abatement of essentially taxes that don't exist now, right? So this is not taking anything away from what is there now. Obviously, making a $4 million investment in real property, that's going to drive your property taxes up. So what it's doing is allowing some relief of that increased tax burden that they will see following their investment. And again, that's really kind of the true partnership. They want to invest in their business. They want to have it continue to grow and provide jobs for the community. And you as a community partner, are being asked to support it through this investment in the tax abatement. So.
And to remind the council, the investment as well is anticipated to bring 46 new jobs to our community. And I believe if President Frisbee's okay with it, Commissioner Gisler wanted to talk and ask a question, reference the county's involvement. But so Jared's well aware of this, but so the council is.
Jared, you're way ahead of me. The county will be looking at this because usually all jurisdictions that would tax that property need to say yes. And I just wanted to assure everybody in the room when Vicksburg says yes, who is their county commissioner to say, oh, I don't think so. So it'll have my wholehearted support. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yes, please.
Hey, Jared, Trustee Wagner here. Would you be able to expand a little bit on what sort of minimum criterias or scope of projects or what developers or business owners in the area could look at to be eligible for this type of program? I mean, are we looking at taking unimproved property and then building something fantastic on it? Does it have to be existing? What kind of scenarios like that?
That's a great question. I think we've touched a bit on this before. I've shared my own kind of personal feelings. There's nothing cast in stone that says here are the minimum criteria. Obviously, from my perspective, we always want to try and be creative and come up with ways to help foster that investment and growth. My kind of just general rule of thumb is if there's an investment of at least $500,000, then maybe it's worthwhile looking at some of these programs. There are other programs that can be established through like a downtown development authority, provided there are sufficient funds where there may be lesser facade grants or something along those lines where maybe it's a $70,000 investment and there's a 50% match. So, I guess I like to say, hey, it's worthwhile looking at if anybody's proposing to make an investment in their property or looking for an expansion, it's worthwhile looking to see what tools might be available to support them. So in that sense, I would say, I wouldn't necessarily turn away anything. But that being said, you do have a somewhat limited toolbox. And you're not going to be able to support every single project. It's just the way it is. Obviously, we're talking a $10 million investment. That's a sizable investment. It is split between real property and personal property. The PA 198, you used to be able to offer personal property tax abatement. That's no longer applicable, given some of the tax treatment and changes in the statute and such. So that's not necessarily available here, but you can look at any project and you can take a step back and say, maybe we have some tools that can assist in it. Maybe we don't. Maybe they take a step back and look at maybe a bigger project than what they had originally anticipated. And if you meet that certain threshold, then maybe it's worthwhile. So it's probably not a direct answer to I can't say, it's $100,000, but I would say, the best way to approach it is to be open-minded You know, you're not going to have a tool that fits every project. But that being said, you know, you're welcoming, you know, reviewing and entertaining ideas for investment in the community. And I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, if you're at least open-minded on that, then, you know, I think, you know, you're a friendly community where people are going to continue to look to invest.
Thank you, Jared.
President Frisbee, I have a quick question for Jared. Jared, what's the typical sunset date on an abatement on a PA 198? And just a typical, or are they all pretty much a uniform sunset date as far as the abatement goes?
So, like you're saying, like the term of the abatement?
Correct.
Yeah. So, you know, that you can go anywhere from, you know, 1 to 12 years. It's really, communities approach it different. Various communities say, you know, hey, we'll give you 12. Others have kind of a tiered, you know, approach where they can say, hey, you know, if you meet this investment threshold or this job threshold, you know, we'll start at 6 and you can work your way up to 12. Or you start at, you know, 7 and work your way up to 12. It really boils down to, you know, a policy. And you know, I understand the village doesn't have a set policy on this front. And maybe that's something we can look at going forward. You know, I think, you know, it's probably a little easier in some of the heavier industrial communities where you have, like, these are pretty, you know, common, theme, right? That, you know, all the manufacturers are making routine investments, and you can kind of gauge what the investment threshold is. And that'd be something, you know, I'll confess, I'd have to work with you guys to better understand, you know. In my time in working with a village, I think this may be the first one that I've seen come up. Maybe there have been others that have been handled just internally or what, but I think it really boils down to whether or not you want to look at establishing a policy. Maybe that's an exploration point, but it really is kind of municipality by municipality. They may approach them different. There's really no, like, they're all 12 or they're all 6. It just really depends.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure, because we've dealt with some other investments in the last few meetings, and some of the sunset dates were, you know, 30 years. So I just wanted to get clarification on PA 198 that, you know, if there was like a maximum sunset date on that, that's all. So thank you.
Yeah, the max would be a 12-year abatement is the max that you can provide. The 30-year stuff I probably were referring to as a brownfield TIF.
Right.
That can go up to 30 years. So, you know, that varies by program. The commercial rehab abatement, which we've talked about as well, you know, you can go up to 10 years on that. But the request before you is for the full term, 12, and it can be anywhere in between.
Thank you.
Any other council members?
Just one question. Is Mr. Hallam going to address the council? Or I just have a question.
Does Mr. Hallam plan on addressing the council?
I just have if it's appropriate, I'd just like to ask a question.
Sure.
Okay,
If you can come to the mic so we can pick it up.
I just want to remind everybody, when we went to high school, you were Gary, but I'll address you as Mr. Hallam tonight.
Gary's fine.
Gary's fine.
Still Gary.
It's good to see you, Gary. Thanks for coming. And thanks for the continued investment by EMO in the community. $4.1 million and 46 jobs is quite an undertaking, so thank you. Just general question, and that is, outside of the financial commitment your business has to the community, can you share with us anything else that you may be doing? And I don't want to give you too many ideas, but whether it's with youth sports, whether it's with Western and bringing engineers, and whether, I just would like to know what else from a business perspective that EMO may be doing in our community that would be helpful for us to know and for people in the community to know that you're doing to give back to the community.
If I can say something, because Mr. Hollam and I have signed an affidavit that there is nothing on the table reference the village relationship or mine and his relationship that would impact the resolution that's before this council member. So if we have a question specific to the PA 198, be happy to answer that. I would like, I think, to caution the council to address the resolution before us, and then on that, Mr. Hallam could go into community involvement. But again, he and I have signed an affidavit that this resolution stands on its own.
Yeah, fair enough, Jim. I have one question for Jared. On the second page, I don't want to read it, but we're talking about aggregate state equalized value for real personal property. After granting this certificate, it will not exceed 5% amount up to the equal sum of the SEV of the unit. So you spoke earlier that this is only for the expansion component, correct? And my understanding is only 5% of the value of the expansion that this is being limited to?
No, so that speaks to, there's a provision in the act that you can't grant abatements for more than that percentage of the village's taxable value. In essence, you can't kind of tip things upside down by giving everybody a tax abatement. It just needs to be within the village's jurisdiction that you can't exceed that amount of the base taxable value, or the village's taxable value within that jurisdiction. Does that make sense?
Somewhat. So, so we're granting an abatement on the future, the next 12 years of that taxable income for that expansion.
Just for the expansion piece. So yeah, the whatever taxes would be generated, whatever increased taxes would be generated from that $4.1 million investment, you're granting a 50% abatement on that portion of the overall taxable value for the property.
50%.
So
I did not read that in the certificate, the application at all.
That abatement would be within the act. It speaks to that abatement, and this would be a new facility, which is a 50% property tax, essentially 50% property tax abatement on the new investment.
Jared, would be another way to describe that as well. On the $4.1 million investment, the village will be receiving 50% taxes that we had, 50% of the total taxable that we had not received previous because there was no investment or expansion. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to look at it, and this math is not going to work out to reality, but if you assume a $4 million investment in your hard costs, theoretically, one would assume that the taxable value would jump by about half, right? So, my taxable value, and I'm just using numbers just for discussion purposes, but if my taxable value on my facility right now is $1 million and I invest $4 million, theoretically, half of your hard cost would reflect an increase in taxable value. So my taxable value based on that investment went up by $2 million, half of my $4 million investment. So now my taxable value is $3 million. So what you guys would be supporting would be a 50% tax abatement on that $2 million. It does not affect your current $1 million base value. You're not giving any tax abatement for what taxes the village is receiving now. It's only on any incremental increase following this investment. Is that better?
That explained it perfectly.
Okay. And Mr. Frisbee, the provision in that resolution, and I'm sorry I have you up on my single screen here, so if I go digging for it, I get a bit sidetracked. But that specific provision is meant to address the fact that you're essentially not getting the village out of formula by granting everyone in the village a tax abatement. That's what that provision is to speak to. And we can confirm, and we can make if you want to make a motion tonight, subject to confirmation with the assessor, we can do that, just to ensure that we are not out of that formula. But that's what that provision refers to.
Well, I think that checks and balances is written in the provision, so I don't think we need a motion on that, but I wanted clarity on that and then understand, because we don't have, all of us, the PA 198 in front of us and know that it's limited to 50%. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to hear. So
Yep.
You answered my question. Thanks. Any other questions for Mr. Walkman while we have him on the... Well, thank you, sir. Well done again. We appreciate all that you do for the village.
Thank you.
He's gonna stay on the call.
Gonna hang out
because
for
he'll
a
have
bit?
couple
Yeah, he's gotta
agenda items.
Oh, yeah.
I rely on him too much. Don't you dare leave yet.
So don't leave us now. So we have a request by staff in front of this council, this board tonight, for application for industrial facilities tax exemption certificate. Village of Vicksburg, County Kalamazoo, State of Michigan, Resolution 04182022-01. I ask the council, what are their desires?
Trustee Keller, I move to approve as submitted.
Trustee Wagner, I support.
Motion by Keller, supported by Trustee Wagner. We'll do a roll call.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Merrill.
Yes.
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes.
And the resolution passes. I appreciate that, Mr. Holmes. Sorry for, we'll have Mr. Holland go ahead and speak on some of the community involvement.
I'm out of here now. Just kidding.
Well done.
The big thing at AMO in the last 5 years is we've really invested heavily in our engineering and our automation. That team has grown to around 8 individuals, so we're using state-of-the-art technology to tend our machines. It doesn't end up replacing a person, but it makes the operation more efficient in terms of how the injection molding machine runs. So, engineering positions. We're constantly looking at Western. We just hired a young man who was working for us and graduated in our engineering department. In the village, we're very active with Generous Hands. That's kind of our favorite local charity. We've made a good donation to Oswald Park where AMO did, so we're very excited about that. I just want to thank the board, the council for approving and working with us, as you always have. It's a good place to do business in Vicksburg.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your continued support. I know someone said it earlier, but we can't say it enough here. So we'll move on to the Commercial Rehab District 101, 103 Prairie Street. And Mr. Jared Balco's back on the stage with us tonight.
Go ahead.
This, I believe, was for the application approval for the actual certificate. This is nothing new. We've talked about this prior. This is the tax abatement for the downtown properties. I think everybody's familiar with the project. This application, this commercial rehab abatement could actually go up to a 10-year abatement. In working with the developer, the intent was to kind of layer in the abatement for the first 5 years, and then to allow the brownfield to step in and kind of take over. So the request before you is for a 5-year term for the abatement on the two properties. And I think everybody's familiar with what's taking place at those properties, probably more so even now than before. But happy to answer any questions. The commercial rehab abatement is a little bit different than the PA 198. It effectively kind of freezes the local share. And when we talk about tax abatements or tax increment financing, there are two components there. Often you've heard us refer to the local and school or local and state taxes. The school taxes or state taxes would be your 18 mil school operating and then your 6 mil SET. The local share is kind of everything else. So this particular abatement effectively freezes the local share, and the developer would still pay the school tax portion during that term. Again, the request before you is for a 5-year term, and they've submitted the brownfield plan, which you guys have supported, which is layered over that, and that kind of kicks in after year 5. So happy to answer any questions for you, but that's the request. This is, I think, probably our maybe 3rd time we've kind of talked about this project. So this would hopefully be the last one on this particular project. But this is kind of the bookend piece for final approval for that package.
Jared, this abatement in that 5-year window is to abate the future taxes of the investment, as was the brownfield?
Correct. So same concept as I kind of described earlier with the 1 million base and 3 million increase. This is only the abatements do not remove anything that's there now. So this would only be on the incremental increase in the taxable value generated by the developer's investment.
That's for the local end of it, right? What about the school component of it?
So the school taxes, they would pay those. Those are not abated. The brownfield is able to pick up a portion of those to reimburse the developer for some eligible costs. So a portion of those school tax increase would be captured by the brownfield authority to reimburse the developer, and then once the 5-year abatement expires, then the brownfield would pick up the local incremental share to help reimburse the developer as well.
I had to jump in before I forgot that question. Open it up to the trustees. Any questions for Jared on this?
If I could,
Yes.
I have a question for the village manager. Was this reviewed by the planning commission last week?
This has been in front of the planning commission and council before, so this is the final step.
Okay.
Hearing no other questions, we have a request in front of us to adopt the Commercial Rehabilitation Act for 101 and 103 Prairie. I'll ask the council what their desires are.
Trustee Wagner, I'll move that we support as submit.
Support from Reister.
Trustee Wagner motion with support by Trustee Reister. We'll do a roll call, please, Jim.
Roll call, President Pro Temp Keller,
Yes.
Trustee Holmes,
Yes.
Trustee Merrill,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Reister,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and again, Jared, I appreciate everything that you do for the village and me. Jared was on vacation out in California with his family when I started to send the emergency texts asking questions, and though it was 7:15, I think my time, it was 4-something his time, and faithfully he answered, so very much thank you as always.
it wrong. It was 10, and we were going down to breakfast at 7, so it was all good. Absolutely, but thank you. No, thank you, everyone. Always a pleasure, and you guys are great to work with. I love getting those requests from Jim. So you guys are always a pleasure to work with. So thank you so much, and as always, anything comes up, you know where to find me.
Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Well, we have something in front of us tonight. An ordinance number 298, granting the mill at the Vicksburg planned unit development. And
we have Andrew Horn, who's village attorney on this issue. So we're remoting in Andrew Horn. I will take 30 seconds to highlight the prep work tonight in remoting people in and being ahead of the bell curve. And thank Andrew for making himself available. So most everyone in this room knows Andrew, and I'll turn it over on this issue.
Thanks, Jim. So this is actually just crossing some T's, dotting some I's. Back in 2018, everybody remembers going through the Planning Commission and the council when it came to approving the development agreement with Paper City. The Michigan statutes actually require that there be an ordinance that outlines this development agreement. Everything had been discussed, everything had been drafted in 2018, and I believe we even did a public notice for the village council meeting, the same meeting that the development plan was approved at. This ordinance in front of you has nothing new. It was literally drafted in 2018, but we knew that it had never actually been approved by the village council. And actually, so I mean, at this point, this evening, we're just seeking the approval of what was before you in 2018. So, more or less cleanup work than anything.
It's under your packet as Agenda 10B, ordinance number 298. So this is officially, and one of the reasons of that delay is the codification process that was going on to clean up already existing ordinances, which then, as we put a lot of stuff in the COVID basket, but the reality, that delayed it as well. But the main reason of the flight pattern was our desire to get current ordinances into that codification process. And I think probably 6-9 months ago, it was put back on our radar, thanks to Jackie. And that's when we tried to flight pattern out where it would land, and we decided literally 6 months ago it would be this meeting. So
I have gone through my memory banks, and that was an extremely memorable planning commission meeting, to say the least. But I do not recall ever approving this on the council level, so that had me questioning it from the...
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we're approving tonight is to put the ordinance on the books. It was the agreement with the mill and the developers has been approved. What we're putting in place is the formal village ordinance, and with approval from the council tonight, this ordinance number 298 will then be inserted into our ordinance book and online records in that.
Yep, that's spot on, Jim. And everything was discussed at the meeting back in 2018, both the Planning Commission and the Village Council meeting. And then I know Mr. Durkee a couple of years ago did the summary of everything and helped us draft this. It went back and forth between our office and Lance Zorhoff up in Grand Rapids, Mr. Durkee and Mr. Mallory, to make sure everything was the same as 2018, and we were giving the council the most up-to-date version of this. So.
Up-to-date version. It is the same version that we adopted
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
absolutely. We wanted to make sure it was the one you had approved and adopted
right.
previously.
Yeah, Mr. President, I was actually chairman of the planning commission back then when we recommended the PUD to the council, so a lot of this looks very familiar. So I can say there was a lot of meetings and hours put into that, so.
Any other questions for Andrew while he's on? Well, the request in front of us tonight is to adopt this ordinance, ordinance number 298, an ordinance granting the Millet Vicksburg planned unit development. What would be the desires of this council?
Trustee Keller, I move to approve as submitted.
Trustee Holmes, I second.
Motion by trustee Keller, second by trustee Holmes. Let's do a roll call, please.
Roll call vote, trustee Merrill.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, Andrew, for always being available. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Another action item on our behalf tonight is Oswald Park furniture and entrance sign. We'll let Jim speak to that.
Yes, this was approved within the 21-22 fiscal year budget presentation last June, both in front of the DDA Planning Commission boards as well as the council. What we had done, as you're well aware, we assigned money once our audits are returned. And so over the course of the previous two fiscal years, we had saved $17,500 for the makeover in Oswald Park, knowing that would go for some of the furniture purchases. One of the items that when we did the review on ensuring the prior park project came under $250,000 with the fundraised portion of the money was the sign. We felt it was important that it would have an appropriate sign in the entryway. The cost of that is listed out there. It was a competitive bid process with 3 competitive bids received, and that was $96.74. And the 3 tables and chairs, which will match all the downtown tables and chairs, the 3 of those totaled $96.60 for a total of $19,334. So what is before you tonight is, and it was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission DDA at the last meeting a couple weeks ago, or last week, is to utilize an additional $1,834 from the 21-22 fiscal year in a DDA account, the one listed 248-751 account, with the $17,500 being from previous fiscal years. So the essence of the request is to approve an additional $1,834 to move forward with this, and the appropriate budget amendment as well as it relates to this.
Any questions for the staff on that?
I do, actually. Jim, I wasn't able to make the planning commission meeting last week, but I remember the agenda, and I'm just, as I'm looking through this, I'm trying to reconcile one thing. Are there cigarette butt receptacles that are part of this somewhere in here?
Those were already approved and purchased. That's under the village manager's update because we finally received them.
Okay.
And when we get the rest of the furniture out, we'll be putting those out. So those are not tied to this council action request.
Okay.
But I'll update the council during village manager time.
Okay,
Though that cost was, I think, $1,054 for 8 of them.
He had one here for the DDA Planning Commission meeting last week.
I actually subbed on that meeting for trustee Holmes, and they had the receptacles here, or had an example of one, but as far as the sign that they're looking to put up, it'll greatly reflect how the rest of the signage downtown is. So, they had a drawing that they, kind of a rendering they showed what it would look like, and so it'll line up Liberty Lane east and west, so it'll look very nice.
And it'll acknowledge, the Oswalt family at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's a green and black sign that's off the main pillars off the corner. I'd pull it up, but I'm a little nervous with the problems we've had at the start of the meeting that this whole computer system will go down.
Trustee Keller may have said this and I missed it, but so the Oswald Park sign will be consistent with Liberty Lane signs?
Yes, it's black and green,
All right,
and it
thank
says Oswalt Park. I will send it via email right after the meeting to everyone. We've had representatives from the Oswalt family, including Mr. Bill Oswalt, down to show them where the sign would be placed and received their input in that. It's been very favorably received.
So we have a request in front of us tonight for the third quarter amendments to DDA budget, which is an addition. To approve the total of $19,334. Sir.
And Jim, the tables reference in the amendment here, those are the ones that are consistent with the renderings and the other approvals for the park that we viewed previously? It's just getting those costs adjusted?
From the same company, they honored the contractual price in that had been through a process before. So, and it's locally from Landscape Forms up in Kalamazoo. So 2 of the tables will have 6 attached seats, and the other one will be ADA compliant with 5 attached seats and room for someone that would need access with a wheelchair or et cetera.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Jim, for clarity, you're asking us to approve what was voted on by the DDA to spend the $19,334.
You can look at it that way. That $17,500 was already approved in the budget process. And as we do, we come back after we've received now the quotes. We actually need $19,334. So what we're pointing out is the money that was previously saved, what'll be used in this fiscal year. But yes, I would like the council's approval, and it allows us then to make the appropriate budget amendments in the fiscal year that we're currently in.
President Frisbee, Trustee Keller, I move as submitted to support an additional $1,834 to the funds that have already been set aside the previous 2 years to bring the total expenditures for Oswalt Park from the DDA to $19,334.
Reister, support.
Motion by Trustee Keller, support by Trustee Reister. We'll do a roll call, please.
Roll call vote will be Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller.
Yes.
Trustee Holmes.
Yes.
Trustee Merrill.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion carries. So we have in front of us the DDA third quarter amendments.
This is a standard request. We did get the unanimous approval from the DDA board last week on approval. So this will help our budget you know, to make the amendments and ensure that the budget's reflective of what's occurred this fiscal year. And they're listed out there. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, hearing none,
Trustee Wagner, I move that we approve the DDA third quarter amendments as submit.
Reister, support.
motion by trustee Wagner, supported by trustee Reister. We'll do a roll call, please.
Roll call vote will be trustee Holmes,
Yes.
trustee Merrill,
Yes.
President Pro Temp Keller,
Yes.
trustee Wagner,
Yes.
trustee Reister,
Yes.
trustee Olson,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Motion carries. And it moves on to grant application, Kalamazoo County Safe Drinking Water Lead Water Lines.
Yes, go ahead. We had an opportunity in Kalamazoo County providing an opportunity to submit for funds, reference money they receive from the federal government under the American Rescue Plan. And within that, due to meeting schedules and the fact we always cancel, if you will, or we don't have one the first Monday of April due to the traditional spring break time, and we have it the third and fourth week of April, and a deadline of April 15th, I submitted 2 grants on behalf of the Village of Vicksburg. It will require approval. If the council does not want the grant to proceed forward, I do have the ability to contact Kalamazoo County and withdraw either grant. But I submitted 2 grants based on what we felt were needs within the village and also met the eligible expenditures under the American Rescue Plan. The first one would be the Vicksburg Lead Line Safe Drinking Water Replacement Project. State of Michigan enacted the Safe Drinking Water Act, or amended it in 2018, that requires municipalities to remove all lead service lines in our village on an average of 5% per year for the next 20 years. That legislative requirement, and it's an unfunded state requirement passing the expense to the local municipalities, is 5% per year for the next 20 years. We believe that there are approximately 600 lead service lines that we will be required to replace. Since January 2021, we have replaced 61 lead service lines, which is equal to 10% within our system. This state of Michigan unfunded requirement will have a financial impact in excess of $6 million, that's today's dollars, over the next 18 years. Predicting inflation and other factors, well, could be in excess of $10 million. We submitted a grant request for $1.2 million from Kalamazoo County's American Rescue Plan, the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program. And the Village of Vicksburg would match the program with $1.2 million from funds we have received federally and our local water fund. Program would be implemented through the 23-25 fiscal years. And what we would receive or invest in, it would replace 1.4 miles of water main that was installed in the 1930s and switch over 100 residential lead service lines. At that point, if this program moves forward and we receive the appropriate funding, we would have 27% of the lead service line replacements completed by the end of 2025, keeping with the state mandate. The decision I made, and I did consult Mr. I'm always nervous I pronounce your name wrong, and since we're on YouTube, okay, so I'll just call him John. He was on vacation in northern Michigan when he got a hold of me, and certainly relayed his support for the village endeavor, and also had talked to other county officials in which we felt, based on their advice, matching this program 50% puts a pretty good position for the village of Vicksburg when it goes ultimately in front of the county and county commissioners in their approval process, as there'll be multiple requests from both municipalities and private sector alike. So I'll pause there and answer any question on that grant.
Sir.
Jim, what's the probability of us getting the grant if we do vote to approve it tonight?
I don't have the answer of the probability of the county due to I don't know everyone who's submitted in what their positions are. I think it is Kalamazoo County's aware of this unfunded mandate. The federal government made these funds eligible for this type of investment, and I think by matching and showing the village's commitment to what ultimately is our obligation puts us in a good position. I do know this, that one, if we do not submit the grant, it's 100% certain we won't get it. And the second is it's 100% certain the state's requiring us to do this anyway. So
just refresh my memory, what is our annual water fund dollars?
Our annual water fund dollars are, give me 1 second.
And while he's looking it up, I think this is important, and I'm asking this for a reason, because I do want to make a statement once. I think I know the ballpark figure, but
it's this is going to be skewed because we're 15 months in approximately $1 million of USDA water upgrades, so we've taken draws out on that loan. So to factor that out, our annual revenue from the water fund, and while I talk, maybe Michelle can look that up and just raise your hand on the annual revenue. I have the balances that are sitting in the water fund. I think I know your question, so we'll come back to the
Sure.
annual revenue, but I can assure this council and the public that the current utility rates that fund the water enterprise fund do not have not factored in this unfunded state mandate, and therefore the entire cost of updating these lead lines will have to be inputted in to those utility rates for water, because you can't take on a project unless you have the funding that's going to guarantee, and it would have to be bonded out. It's hopefully, it's one of these situations, hopefully the state recognizes the situation communities like Vicksburg are in, and funds become available for programs. Currently, the USDA does not fund lead line replacements. So like we're involved, or we just entered into a 40-year bond obligation on a project. I don't believe lead lines are eligible. At least they weren't on an initial inquiry.
The replacement of the lead lines though would come from the water fund, is that?
I'm sorry?
The dollars to replace those lead lines would come from the water fund.
They'd be
though.
required to, so
Right.
it'd be user rates.
Okay. The reason I point that out is because I think it's really important that citizens understand that as a 150-year-old village, when you get old, you got a lot of needs. And our infrastructure is no exception. The council a few years back got a grant from the state, put a fiber optic cable in our water and sewer systems, and identified that we had, I believe, in the neighborhood of $30 million in critical infrastructure need. We could only float a bond with the USDA for a third of that. That's just for the community. Now you look at this in addition with additional needs that we have related to the water authority. This is something that I'm going somewhere with this, by the way. And what I'm doing is I'm totally supporting this effort that we look outside of traditional means to fund, because what we got today isn't going to get us out. What we got today is not going to come up with that additional 20 million that we need. What we need today isn't going to help us with some of the expenses that we have in association to belonging to the water authority. And what we're doing today isn't going to help us with funding the replacement of these lead lines. And so that's why it's really important, I think, that citizens understand that, because we're trying to be very responsible as it relates to issues like this. And that's why I commend the village manager for really going out of his way to look for additional funds to address this aging community's needs. So.
And we have a meeting next Monday where I can give a brief presentation on our annual revenue from the water fund, because I wasn't prepared for that, and it'll be skewed because of these loan dollars. So if you give me till next week, I'll certainly update you how much that fund is. And then through the budget process that we have here in June, we should have the analysis and outside consultants that will be spelling out our funding for utility rates for the next fiscal year. Already, we knew going into this year, they had advised us that it would be a 3% increase. That's not factoring in these state mandates that we're under. So.
The 10% that we've corrected this year, now that the work's done, because we're doing the streetscape, the opportunity was there to do the job now. Will these things that have already been completed be eligible for any of these grants?
No, we funded that through our water fund in this project, and that was mainly the connections to the residents were funded. Water main updates were part of the project that the USDA that the loan was eligible for. So water main per half mile in today's dollars is about $450,000 just for the materials for that infrastructure. That doesn't include engineering or digging a hole in the labor and that. So it's and I know we all hear the impact it has. I think it highlights as well the endeavor staff has. I've told the council that we've been analyzing in this project some of the utility billing and meter equivalencies that need to be improved. So there will be some addresses that are impacted by that, but it's all to ensure that when we do an analysis and what the village will be impacted, whether it's water or sewer, that we're ensuring that every 1,000 gallons of water this village uses, wherever it's uses, is tracked billable.
So, Jim, are you asking for us to give a resolution of support in the grant application?
Right, a vote of
support.
official support, and I just wanted to explain why it was submitted prior. I didn't want the deadline to be missed, and in communicating with the county, and there's an actual, I submitted it, and now there's a withdrawal button. So with council support, we'll let the grant just continue. If the council didn't feel the need, then I just hit the withdrawal button.
Council's desires?
Trustee Wagner, I move that we support the submission of the lead line safe drinking water replacement project as outlined by the village manager. I think it's excellent.
Trustee Holmes, I second.
Trustee Wagner, motion, home support. Do we need a roll call or voice call?
Yeah, a voice call. Good.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. I just wanted to say, you know, on following up on Trustee Holmes' comment that the city of Kalamazoo next year and the year after are raising their water and sewer rates. I think it was 12 and 14% and 10 and 12% respectfully. So I don't know if they're positioning themselves for the needs of the lead line or if they're just catching up with today's economy and what it costs them to run their system. But we're seeing those increases, large increases by other major municipalities. So, and one other, I just have a inquiry on, Jim, are you hearing of any other communities in your discussions and that is already started to address lead lines, or is that something that they're putting?
Yeah, there are many communities, especially our size, are going to a fixed quarterly amount of money for water users that then becomes solely for lead line replacements. Usually those dollars are factored in what 5% a year would be, and with a little cushion to get you to that point. It's going to be a challenge and very impactful for the community. Part of what we will present when we get to the utility section of the 22-23 fiscal year is cost increases. It's an investment increase. I went and met with the director of Public Works for the city of Kalamazoo to gain a better understanding and appreciate the time they spent with me. They're going to a flat billing system, and then it'll curve itself out, is my understanding. But it's exactly that. I mean, anything. The cost of doing business has increased, the operation. I've heard some comments in one phone call. It isn't out of line, as it was explained to me, what that investment is going forward to. And our system alone is incredibly valuable. And I mean, I'll next week have an exact figure, but it's in the tens and tens of millions of dollars that we're operating a system of infrastructure in the amount of sewer pipes and water pipes that go through this community. I guess also point out on the positive side of the teeter-totter, we've had economic investments in this community for the past few years. And quite often, especially industrial or significant ones, are because we offer infrastructure. The value, we'll be closing on the property that's already been approved by the council in the future, but the value of property like that and the ability for manufacturing or industrial to come, they need infrastructure that's in place. I did meet, and I know it's part of the public record at the South County Sewer Authority reference a potential down in St. Joe County that they had approached looking at. I met with the individual behind that, and it's my opinion, and they agreed with me that this is in early conversations, as though they were sitting around desiring to be able to provide wastewater treatment, and it would be a rush if it was here in the 5 to 7 year mark, and there's so many processes for something like that. One growth on the village, you know, is we're on the move, and we have a pretty big investment that's due to open in 25 and 26, and have to put us in the position. So we're on the positive side in finalizing some of this deals. The village having infrastructure truly helps versus the communities that don't have infrastructure.
Thank you, Jim. So we have a,
Out there, and did we take a voice vote on the? We
Yes,
did.
we did.
So I need to owe you a thank you then and stop talking.
7-0.
The second item
Go right ahead.
on the second grant, I started looking at underrepresented, in my opinion, segments of our community. You know, 2 years ago, it might have been 3, we invested quite a bit of money to redo the roads south of the high school. And we've never, as a staff, put items in front of the council based on the lobbying of any individual group or area of this community. We try to truly look at what would have the most impact and really look for the people who need government to serve them the most. So in talking with this opportunity, and it's eligible within the federal American Rescue Plan, it was twofold. We're placing a request to the Kalamazoo County for $500,000 from the Kalamazoo County American Rescue Plan of the state and local fiscal recovery funds. And a second grant application I'm seeking approval to submit to the Vicksburg Community Foundation for $150,000. The total of $650,000 would be used to fund the following 3-year grant program for low-income, historically underrepresented members of our population by improving their owner-occupied homes with improved energy efficiency. This is where I contacted Drew Johnson, and the South County Community Services have provided a letter of support to help secure this funding opportunity and would participate in the grant application process. The grant would specifically provide up to $20,000 per low-income owner-occupied homes by improving roofs, windows, doors, furnaces, and/or hot water heaters, thus focused on improving the energy efficiency. It also provides the opportunity of this investment in our housing stock in the community well into the future. If approved, I will submit the grant tomorrow to the Vicksburg Foundation, and the county's has already been submitted. Be happy to answer any questions. Reference this.
I just had a question. So the person who would borrow this, take advantage of the grant would have 3 years to pay it off?
It would not be, the details within the grant program would be finalized by working with Kalamazoo County Housing Authority to get the parameters, but it would be more like a forgivable. So It's owner occupied. It's based on below the medium income level and other financial factors. But those eligible then, if let's say over the 4 years after the energy efficiency improvements took place, would be forgiven at about a 25% each year, and thus, if they were owner occupied for 4 years, it'd be forgiven altogether.
That's a great idea. You know, I think this makes a lot of sense because I know that there are areas in the Vicksburg area where you can tell that they just can't afford to do probably things that they would really like to be able to do. And so I think this would be very helpful for those individuals, but it would also be helpful for the entire community because it would improve those properties.
Yeah, I was motivated because we do have the impact every 3 months. We face and interact with citizens who struggle to pay the utility bill. And we've worked with numerous community resources to ensure those bills get paid. But it's impactful to sit and talk to a single mother attempting to raise 3 kids, owns the home, and has to make a decision reference to pay a utility bill or to get the furnace service to get her through and her kids through the winter. Yeah. Not everyone who is late. There's some habitual late utility people, but sometimes they camouflage that. I mean, there's some need in this community from individuals that if we can help as a government, it motivated us to create this opportunity, hopefully with county support.
That's great.
President Frisbee, Jim, I'd like to say thank you to you and the staff for forward thinking on this. I mean, I know we've done a lot for this village, infrastructure-wise over the last few years, but this will impact people greater than anything else we've done. So thank you. I appreciate this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I believe I heard our former county treasurer, Ms. Balkema, I think she's heading up that group, and I heard her speak to it the other day, and it just made so much sense. So thank you for being proactive in this, Jim. You know, I think, well comment, well stated, it'll make impacts well beyond what we've done. So I think with that, I'll ask for a motion approve Mr. Mallory to go into these 2 grants.
I think we did the first one already.
No, there are 2 grants in this one to the.
Can you do them together as one, or do you need them separately?
Wait, no, we can do them together.
I move it as submitted.
Trustee Wagner, I support.
Motion made by Trustee Keller, supported by Trustee Wagner. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Appreciate that. Basically, what we've done is we've gotten John to the 2-yard line. Now we're asking him to get that ball across, score a touchdown.
Go, John. Go, John. Sir, yes, sir.
Excuse me. I need to get up and walk these bones a little bit. I think your village manager's being modest in his expectation of the approval likelihood of these grant applications for ARPA money. He's worked absolutely the way he should, and I don't know what others are going to be coming in right under the deadline. There'll be a slew of them, I'm sure. But because the ARPA funds for the county are indeed for the county, people will bend over backwards to find ways of funding things in out county. Vicksburg is a good example. Pavilion's even far enough out. We've already gone through some housing proposals, and they've got a very elaborate system for how each county commissioner is supposed to score these projects. It took me at least a week to figure out how to play the game. And they wound up approving it was a laydown almost, a 344-unit apartment complex in Pavilion Township. Figure that. But these guys are developers extraordinaire. They've got them in Benton Harbor, over in Oakland County. They submitted paperwork that would knock your socks off, and it was a done deal. So much of what's being proposed is in inner city type Kalamazoo, and some of it's slipping out into Portage. But when a good project, and you've got two here, especially since you're matching funds, not 1-to-1 except on the first one, that gets the attention of some people, because we're looking at a lot of proposals that want to put up 10%, and the rest they want through the ARPA grant. I'm encouraged, let's say that. Jim's being modest. I would say I'm going to be very disappointed if you don't get all these things approved, these two. And it's largely because this guy is doing it right.
Yep.
You know, he and Mary Balkema are on each other's speed dial.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, it moves us on to village manager report. No, yes, yes.
We're in the home stretch.
Yes, one thing I'll add on this, and I'm going to hand this document, because we'll add this under village manager's town. So that'll be the last item. It's just for Mr. Frisbee to swear in Christian as our village clerk. So then feel comfortable him putting these 96-page agendas together. The construction project updates, and if council wishes clarification, just raise your hand or ask any questions. But Washington Street, all the underground work has been completed with the sewer, water main, storm. There were 14 homes that were, their leads were changed over to under this lead line to make them not have that problem. And you will see now the street get put back together already, the sidewalks being prepped to finalize. So that should be well on time for asphalt before the 15th of May. And hopefully you saw where downtown area is, we milled off certain sections, so we made sure that was done. So as soon as Washington Street's available to be paved, it will get on the schedule, and we'll get that done. There is, you might hear that there's a section by the lift station. And it's like a 20-foot pipe section. It's exterior, doesn't impact the repaving of the road or anything. The lift station's fully functional, but an upgraded pipe is on back order due to arrive in September. It's all external work, and so that'll be the last little button to tie down. But if people see something happening, because if it arrives beforehand, they'll get to it. But any questions on the Washington Street or Mill Street area?
I think you just highlighted the supply chain issues for a piece of pipe in September.
It's even getting down a little bit to the micro level, the decorative fencing and that fencing that's going to go in those 4 areas on Main Street is on back order, and we truly hope it's here before the car show, but there's a potential that out of all of our controls that it might not arrive. So it's just what we all have to live with and move forward. Downtown striping should see Prairie Street. We like it to be 55 degrees or warmer for 10 consecutive days, I guess, is the rule of thumb, I'm told. So as soon as we get there, you'll see certainly Prairie Street. and half of Main Street striped out. Once Washington Street is completed, you'll see the southern half of Main Street, as well as those additional parking spots put on Washington between Michigan and Main Street and Kalamazoo in the alley. Our hope is that's all completed by May 23rd. The downtown tables, which were supposed to be delivered April 10th, we received notice last week that 5 tables should come in the week of May 9th and 3 additional tables the week of May 23rd. And then, yes, this cigarette butt huts have arrived. We will, by May 20th, when we have a couple more benches and trash receptacles to get out, we'll be installing those cigarette disposal units and affixing those to the sidewalk. There'll be 8 of those. So I'll pause there. Yes, sir.
If I could, and I'm going to apologize to the council members, if I was at last week's planning committee, we would have had this discussion then. But I'm just curious, Jim, these are permanent, they're not movable then?
The cigarette?
Yes.
Yes.
And generally, is it 8 of them in the downtown? Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
So there's 8 of them. So this will be within the social district then?
These devices?
Where they're placed at? Will this be within the boundaries of the social district? Okay. And that was what I just wanted to confirm with you, because just to remind my fellow council members, we voted last year to make the social district non-smoking. And so as it stands right now, we're putting cigarette butt receptacles within the social district. And I bring this to your attention because I actually go downtown, I frequent downtown establishments in the evening and as well as the day, and I can assure you that most of the time people are smoking is when they're visiting the establishments in the evening hours, which would be when our social district is. And so that's why again, this would have been nice, I think, if I could have been able to address this beyond the village manager's time, which basically these things are ordered, they're on their way. But I mean, I feel like we're almost a little hypocritical here, folks, if we're agreeing to put if we vote to keep the social district non-smoking and we're putting cigarette butt reciprocals in at the same time. And if the comment is going to be back, well, the social district it's only open during the evening hours, that's also for the day. Let me ask you a question. When you go to a destination community, Holland, Chicago, LA, you see a park bench. There's no signs on it, but you see a park bench. What is that telling you? It tells you generally that come here and sit. It's okay to sit here, right? You see a cigarette butt receptacle, whether it's at 4 p.m. or 10 p.m., it's telling you the same thing. And so my question is this, and that is maybe the question I should have asked early on, and that is to what extent, have we had engagement downtown where we've had to issue warnings or even tickets to people that were smoking in the social district?
Twofold. It obviously a large motivating factor to put these out and where we'll put them out is because there's hours that the social district is not in place, but what we envision on, not only that, but we have a designated smoking area within the social district that will have a couple of these. What I envision is if we identify a establishment that is creating the atmosphere where people are smoking in the social district, especially if it holds a liquor license, we'll deal with that establishment to make sure that they regulate their customers to not be violating the rules, because we have a lot more influence through a liquor license, and that's how we deal with it. We've already had some communications, and very positive. It's not, it's, hey, we need you to work with us, and we receive very positive answers.
Right. So we have.
But I will answer. If there's a problem individual, yeah, they can be given a ticket. Absolutely.
Have there been?
No, that's not our goal. Our goal is not enforcement. Our goal is to gain compliance, and we haven't. A little bit difficult. We don't have quantified data really, as the social district's been impacted by the construction, weather, and that. So I do not have any complaints reference smoking, or we do know that in one particular location for sure we've met with the business owner, and he's absolutely in agreement with us that he's to ensure his customers aren't just outside of a boundary smoking, which is in the social district, or we'll address it through the licensing.
President Frisbee? Just in regards to the ordinance for the social district, it is an ordinance, and this, I'm just going to remind trustees, this council or any future council can vote to rescind that ordinance if they wish. As far as the receptacles go, whether we allow smoking or no smoking, we still should have, receptacles there for people to police their butts, because otherwise they're going to throw them on the ground. And
it's not an issue today, Mr.
No,
Keller.
I understand, but we still should.
I walk the community. I do not see cigarette butts in the streets, but I do walk the community in the evening hours, and I can assure you, if we went down to the Hideaway right now, we would see people smoking out front, not within 35 feet away from the entrance. And so the question that I've asked is how big of an issue this is, and it appears that the impression that the village has that it's not an issue. However, we're putting smoking receptacles in a designated smoking area. Not sure if you guys were aware of that either. This is the first time I've heard of a designated smoking area in the village within the social district.
That was what was voted on by this council
on a plan.
unanimously.
But I would like to commend Mr. Keller for stating the obvious, which is that the smoking ban in the social district can be rescinded, and if any council member would like to make a motion that this council consider the smoking ban, I would second it.
Well,
I'm going to claim my time back real quick, just so everybody realizes too, we, at the Vicksburg B&B, which is the Lions Club festivities we put on every year, we didn't officially allow smoking under the tent. But what we did was we put receptacles, butt cans, along the perimeter of the tent. And so at the very least, people would at least put their butts in there, because when the festival was over with, the one thing we had to do as Lions was to pick up every cigarette butt that was on the grounds, so that the grounds were left as pristine as they were when we got there. What we found was when people realized that you weren't really supposed to be smoking under the tent, they stopped. They might smoke out in the area, but at least they, for the most part, they put the butts in the cans. So.
Yeah, and I think it might assist, as you know, a prime example, the Hideaway was mentioned. So when we put one of these devices, I'll call them, the containers, and they look nice, it will be in the back alley of the Hideaway where it is allowed. The Hideaway, as a participating liquor license establishment, they have to police their crowd and educate them that during those hours that the back alley is an area that people can smoke in. We are offering that. Another thing that with the investment we've made downtown, and I credit Randy Skippers and his crew, I asked them, and downtown businesses have noticed it. I've had 2 independently on their own initiative, but each morning, Monday through Friday, 3 members of the DPW crew go through downtown picking up, whether it's cigarette butts. It's amazing how much trash people litter in our downtown. But that's one thing that they've started since, I'll say the snow season has stopped. So each morning, they start out their day, 3 of them, going through the downtown, picking stuff up. There'll be a couple over by Liberty Lane West, one on Liberty Lane East, down by the Dollar General. Main Street, they purchased similar ones, so that saved us a little bit of money. There'll be one near one of the entrances to Oswald Park when will be added. There'll be one as you enter the social district down by Vickers as well. I don't know if I just named 8 locations or not, but we pointed those out. But I don't think it's going to be an issue, because I think the establishments that serve liquor and are open later all indications, they want to ensure people aren't smoking as well. I mean, specifically, even talking to Scott Blankenhorn at the Hideaway, he articulates how much his business increased when the state of Michigan came in and didn't allow smoking. So, but you're right, if the future council wants to change it.
I just want to make a quick comment. When we were doing the DDA, just kind of policing and cleaning up the planting areas before they were removed, we would find just tons of cigarette butts, especially behind Jasper's. I think it was the workers. But anyway, just tons of cigarette butts and stuff, and it's just like they don't go away. And the thing about the social district is where you have people like in seating and a wait person is coming out, and you're sitting at a table. If a smoker comes and sits next to you, you know, you could politely ask somebody to stop, but they might give you a bunch of trouble about it. And so I think the original intent was if people needed to smoke, they could kind of walk away into these designated spots and have their cigarette and get a little exercise too. And in that way, the people that aren't smoking would not have to be subjected to it. So I'm really looking forward to these cigarette butt huts, so it gives a place to properly dispose of things. Thank you.
Again, I'll use the analogy. If you see a park bench, what do you think? You think it's where I sit, right? You see a cigarette butt hut, what do you think? Regardless of whether it's 2 in the afternoon or 10 in the evening, I can smoke. Folks, I just think we're being a little hypocritical here. We had a very robust conversation around this, and I think it's very hypocritical that if this council continues to agree to have a non-smoking district, that we put cigarette smoking butt receptacles there. I understand the rationale behind it, but I struggle to connect the 2 issues as far as that's concerned, and I'll leave it at that.
Are you asking us to remove them?
I'm waiting to see if a council member would like to take up the non-smoking issue in the social district. If not, then I will address that, President Frisbee.
Any other comments? Or?
Well, what I think we could entertain now that we're kind of
That wasn't me.
It's me this time. Can you hear me? Okay. I think that it kind of brings up a good discussion point that I think in the next several meetings coming into the summer that we could take some time to reevaluate the effectiveness of the social district, some of the policies we might have in place, and ways we might want to review things. I don't think it would be a bad idea to open up that discussion. Like others have alluded to, that we have the ability to change these things through ordinance if we wish, so I wouldn't think it'd be awful to have some discussion at a future time, give everyone some opportunity to prepare points for things they might like to see changed.
Yeah, just one point of clarification. It's not a change of ordinance. It would just be a change of the rules.
Trustee Holmes, I would like to make a motion that we do not place cigarette butt huts in the downtown community.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have support? Hearing no support, motion fails. You had the DPW barn on the agenda?
Did, the oil, or, storm water system, led by, Frederick's Construction is in place, probably 90% or more. I wasn't there today, but that's looking good. We'll have the oil separator and drains installed inside the building, should be no later than the end of the week of April 25th, and then followed within 2 weeks by the cement floor. In the end of May, the bay doors. So hoping to have those projects certainly completed by May 31st. Oswalt Park is again moving forward. I think that's a little bit more out in the open and people see. We didn't have much work there today due to the weather, but they've been pretty faithful, and especially like to remind everyone it's Dan Oswalt from Oswalt Electric that's donating the labor, and if anyone's been there the past 8 to 10 days, it's fairly labor intensive that they're there most every single day. So certainly a shout out of thanks and gratitude to Oswalt Electric and Dan Oswalt and his crew. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and then the exciting part of the night would be if President Frisbee could call up Christian Wine.
Let's do it.
We'll do it.
Do it.
Christian, good day. So it's the oath of office, State of Michigan, County of Kalamazoo. Raise your right hand, please. I do solemnly swear and/or affirm
I do solemnly swear and/or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village clerk
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village clerk
in and for the village of Vicksburg,
in and for the village of Vicksburg,
County of Kalamazoo and State of Michigan,
County of Kalamazoo and state of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Do we need two?
Yes.
Any certified zone
Well, I'll say as they're signing that, it's last week. It's just anytime someone new joins the team, it's fun, a little bit refreshing and motivating in of itself. But to have someone, we know Christian's work ethic and integrity due to being a village employee before, but his enthusiasm and willingness to learn, I'm really looking forward to and moving forward. So definitely appreciate him accepting the job offer and the task at hand. So.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Takes us to committee reports, and I think the planning commission, we went over everything that was discussed. Unless you
Yeah,
wanna
you pretty
elaborate.
much stole my thunder, except for, they did review wants, needs, and wishes of the DDA. Planning Commissioner DeLong had reached out to the community via Facebook on wishes, and I think she had 100 and, how many were that came back?
It was over 300.
300. So they ranged greatly in different ideas, but so they're compiling that together. So I'm sure that the DDA Planning Commission will have lots of things to look forward to in their future. So.
And of course, Jim made them go through the exercise to do their own, me included. There was no fire meeting last week. There was no, correct?
Yeah, the fire meetings this week, but we did, obviously, everybody knows, we did have a fire downtown
Oh, yes.
last week, and told it was pretty much a total loss. I got a text while I was down in Hillsdale about it, so very sorry that happened.
And there is a fund at the Distant Whistle for those families that were displaced, and Spencer happened to be one of the individuals that lived there, and he's been a longtime employee of Dane's at the Distant Whistle. So they've been impacted greatly. So if you see it in your heart to stop in and drop some money in there, that'd be appreciated. South County Sewer, actually the meeting is coming up, and they canceled the April meeting. Is there any updates from the tree committee?
Yeah, we're going to meet this tomorrow night, and Mr. Mallory is going to be at our meeting.
Excellent. And Parks and Rec, was there any updates?
Yeah, we lost another tree too on Michigan, so it's like, we keep losing them. So sad. What will the squirrels do? Okay, so on Parks and Rec, we had a meeting March 23rd, and I was sick. And anyway, there was discussions held, and there's nothing to vote on. We still, I believe, have an opening in Parks and Rec. So please check it out. And then our next meeting, I'm not sure if this is correct or not, is on April 25th, which is council night.
At 6 o'clock.
Oh, it's at 6, okay.
Yep.
So the website will get corrected to say 6 o'clock. Will be the next meeting of Parks and Rec here on the 25th. Thank you.
And we
That's it.
do have applicants, and I
Yes.
believe both Parks and Rec
And the
and the
library.
library board will be handled at the council meeting next, with the president recommending to the council.
So this is the time that we have set aside for citizens' comments for non-agenda items. So if there's anyone that would like to speak to the council, this is your time to do it. Please, if you would, if you don't mind standing up here, please, and address your full name and home address.
I'm Tammy Hamilton, 210 West Washington. I just wanted to bring some details to your awareness. My husband and I have lived at our address for 25 years. And more recently, the demographic of the person that's moving into the village has changed. I don't feel like it's anymore somebody who takes pride in their property, takes pride in their house. I think it's more somebody who wants to have a good time. We had some new neighbors move in at 212 South Michigan about a year ago. We had some problems with noise. We had some problems with dogs. We went over there to address the neighbor and be neighborly and be friendly. The response to the dog was, well, you have a fence. You have to keep my dog in my yard, not to keep your dog out of my yard. One night in September, we ended up calling the police because it was loud noise with music, motorcycle, and dog. My husband had gone over there, again, to try to politely express our concern, and he was basically told that if you were walking on my property, I'd beat the shit out of you. So we had Officer Herrick come to our house. He was fully aware of it. I have a case number and all that stuff. It's not the first and only incident. Dogs I have encountered the property just to the east of the Methodist Church. On multiple occasions, I've brought their dogs back. Now, their dogs, I'm pretty sure, are no longer there. Because I walk in the village about 5 in the morning, a lot of times at lunchtime, and usually about 5 o'clock in the afternoon often. And one morning, my friend and I were crossing south from, the laundromat area, and one dog met us there in that parking lot, and it's 5 in the morning. We're walking with our dogs. I just loudly yelled at the dog, and it backed off. And I know because I brought these dogs back that they're generally friendly, but most people don't, and there's a lot of traffic in that area at that time of day. We went south, cut across, and we were coming up on Michigan, and we encountered the other dog. Again, just hollered at the dog, and it backed off. I've also often seen dogs crossing across, almost by the tennis courts. There's the big yellow house right on that intersection. Again, I've walked across that intersection multiple times. The dog has come across the intersection while I'm waiting for traffic. And I've politely told the people, I'm worried about this dog's safety. I could care less about me. I know the dog is friendly with me and my dog, but this dog's going to get hit. I have multiple times called about the noise at Vickers. Most recently, I met with the chief about a week ago. And I can say, I think it was better this weekend, but summer is coming. They're going to take down their tenting. It's going to be louder. I'm also here with my neighbor, Michael Horn. I've spoken with other neighbors in the neighborhood. Everybody is between a 25 to 50-year resident who is having issues with noise. I spoke with one neighbor. He absolutely agreed with me. He's on oxygen. He's pretty much housebound. He really doesn't have many options. So I just want to make you aware that there are some issues going on, and I think you've kind of turned over the demographic in the downtown area.
Yeah.
I have addresses and phone numbers of a couple neighbors. They're all more than willing to speak with any one of you.
All right, if you don't mind leaving it with the village manager, please.
Certainly. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Tammy, what is your address again?
210 West Washington.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tammy made enough copies.
That's all right.
Yes, sir.
Michael Horn. I live at 233 West Washington. I'm right next to the dam and the lift station. My issue is Vickers. I've called police many a times, and it seems like the guy, the DJ they have there, he's there more often now. I think he's almost becoming a house DJ, but he's not taking it seriously when they're asking him to turn it down. Because at 10 o'clock at night, the volume goes back up until 11. And the cops had been there because it had gone down, earlier in the night. So I'd been through that same thing with my son. He played guitar in a band. He liked to play it loud. He got ticketed the second time the cops come to visit him because they were tired of the complaints. So, I'm just asking for help in this matter, support the police and somehow dealing with this. Because it's, right now the windows are closed. I can still hear it over the TV. I don't know if any of you can hear it. But yeah, it's very loud, and you have places like Jasper's that invested in that garage door in the front. They would like to have it open, but if they're being drowned out by noise from another establishment, are they going to have the door open? Or are they going to have to turn the volume up on their business? So it's, that's my biggest concern there. And I love it here. It's a quiet community, and this guy must not be a local. He doesn't know that, and I plan on staying here. I have a plot in the cemetery, so I'll be here much longer than Vickers. That's my point, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, just on a note to that, Chief Sanderson has brought this to our attention, and he's working with the village manager. I'll assure you that some way, whether it takes meetings with ourselves to meet with the ownership, we'll have those discussions with them. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. I can hear it briefly when the wind is blowing just right out of the east. I can hear it coming over, but I can't imagine if that was every night. You're welcome anytime at my house. All right. Thank you. I might take you up on that. So was that it? I take it was. So we'll move on to trustees' time.
Let me check, we have one.
Oh, yes. Forgot about it.
Oh, did I just jinx this? No, I didn't touch anything. But we did have one wait on here, and hopefully it reconnects. We always have some issues. We're looking at getting a Verizon hotspot to handle our own Wi-Fi. But if it comes up, let's go, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, if it comes
President
back
Frisbee
up,
to,
we'll just go on to trustees' time and we'll catch them.
Yeah.
We'll do trustee Merrill.
Well, regarding what the neighbors said, they're my neighbors too. And so I was just going to say, I've been tempted to call myself because sometimes there's a one-trick drummer and it's just bam, bam, bam. and it never varies. And so I know when the mill had to get approval, there's an app on the phone and it does the decibels, and I'm not sure what the decibels are, but maybe the police would have a decibel reader on their phone app. Don't know, but it's becoming a problem. And when they had soft acoustical stuff, it was beautiful. Yeah, we all liked it, but when it's just this repetitive drumming, I hope it gets resolved. Thank you.
I should have mentioned before, the chief has a meeting scheduled with the ownership of Vickers this week, and I'm confident through that Jack and John, owners of Vickers, are community oriented, and I'm confident that they'll appropriately address this.
Great.
Trustee Holmes.
Just one comment. Congratulations, Joshua Holmes and Olivia Holmes. Both of my children graduate from college 1 week from one another in the coming week, and I'm also very grateful that I'm done writing checks.
Maybe.
Right. Trustee Olson.
You know, real quick, Mr. Mallory's going to want to know that the ducks have returned to the Trillium Plat. They have been at my feeder. If you don't know the story, 3 baby ducklings fell into a storm drain a couple of years ago with Mr. Mallory. And the police department and the fire department and the Department of Public Works all showed up to help rescue these baby ducks. So the parents are back. I want to thank South County Fire Authority for all the work they've done. We mentioned the apartment fire downtown, which you may not know is they had 2 other large fires, house fires in Waukesha. And one of them was pretty much a total loss. 8 people lived in the house, and they did not have working fire detectors, smoke detectors. So they are available for free through the South County Fire Authority. All you have to do is stop at the station or contact the station. Vicksburg Vintage Market, we open up May 15th at the Pavilion. We are giving the Vicksburg Historical Society a free booth there so they can sell goods to help raise funds for the society. Lastly, there was an article I sent it to Susan Frisbee and Jim and that. There's a man named Kyle Buzzard who moved to Vicksburg, and he came up with an app for a smart bird feeder, which it takes pictures of birds and recognizes them, and it also, you can do a live feed. His group, through Kickstarter and Indiegogo, raised $13 million to get this project off the ground. He now employs 40 employees between the United States and Slovenia, and he's looking to hire another 12 to 20 more people. This is for a small item, this is a big initiative. And the fact that he is now a Vicksburg resident, he moved here 2 years ago, I think it says a lot. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Trustee Wagner.
Let's see. One really,
notes.
yeah, I try to have notes. Keeps me on topic, otherwise I'll ramble. The Vicksburg Chamber of Commerce is gearing back up, revving up, so there's a newly elected board. Folks are putting together event strategies and business promotional opportunities and economic development opportunities, so expect to see more and hear more from the Chamber of Commerce. It's going to be very cool to see this summer. Like I said earlier on Social District, I would entertain reviewing some of those things, getting to talk about it in more detail now that we've had some time under our belt with it. And regarding the fire downtown last week, I'm just curious if we have any opportunities we can to be proactive with these types of things for, I know we've been talking on rentals recently in the past couple of years with short-term and things like that, what we might do for policies, ordinance, procedures, things like that to help prevent some of these things that would be preventable if there's something that we're missing. I don't know the answer to that question, just kind of exploring that to see if there is anything we can do to be proactive and try to avoid any future tragedies. Thankfully, this one wasn't as severe as it possibly could have been. And on top of that, I really think that's about it for me tonight. So,
Thank you, sir. Trustee Reister.
Well, I would like to thank Tammy and Mike for coming tonight and stating the problem that they see. We really appreciate it when people come and tell us about the problems that they're having, because that's the only way we'll know about it. And I'm glad to see that Scott is already taking that problem and working with it. So I just appreciate the fact that you came tonight and sat through this very long meeting. I'm really excited about what's happening in Vicksburg. Mackenzie's opening up, and I was so excited to see this huge line of people lined up around the building. And so I'm hoping that things go extremely well there. I know that there are people outside of town that are interested in coming, so congratulations. That's it.
President Pro Tem Kettler.
Mike and Tammy, also thank you for stopping in and voicing what's going on in your neighborhood. I appreciate it. I'm the only council member on this board that is on the east side of town, so
You live on the wrong side of
there's
town.
lots of things that go on my side of town that don't get reported as well. So, but also Christian, I want to welcome you to the staff. Congratulations, and look forward to working with you in the future. So, that's it.
Jim, I just want to, based on a couple of comments tonight, really consider and move ahead with a strategic planning session for an off-site session. Ryan brings up some great ideas. Jared tonight talked about the PA 198 policy, in discussions with chief and sound ordinances. We have some things that, we can just bring these ideas together and see what it needs to be done first. So I want to move to that, if we can do that, in the summer. Of course, I introduced Kristen earlier, but Kristen, welcome. And I'm going to miss next Monday's meeting, so just fair warning.
No.
I've got a 30-year customer that I haven't seen in 6 years, and his business has gone away, and I've got to make the trip. And he invited me out Tuesday, the 27th, or the 26th. The meeting's on the 25th, so I'll miss that meeting. So Jim and I will get updated on the happenings for that meeting. Other than that, barring any further comments, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Reister support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Aye.
meeting adjourned.